There is a wrong way to bake with almond flour, and then there's this way. If your grain-free baked goods end up dense or oily, I have a few easy suggestions for you. And if there's one thing I love, it is to make suggestions. So let's get started. So the very first important thing is your bananas. You want some ugly bananas. The uglier, the better. So this recipe, it says 2 bananas, but I always, when I do banana recipes, I will always put the measurement in because 2 bananas could be completely different sizes. So I'm going to mash them and then I'm going to measure them. So you need a cup of mashed bananas, which is also 251 grams. So if you use too much bananas, then it will be very dense. Too little, your bread will be dry and your ratios will be all off your wet to dry ingredients. So that's why you want to make sure that you mash and then measure. I'm gonna do, it's a little bit shy of a cup, so I'm just gonna mash a tiny sliver more. Okay, hard part's over. Bananas are mashed, they're measured, you're good. So now the bread just comes together really quick in a bowl. You don't even need a mixer for this. So put in your mashed bananas, 1/4 cup of oil. You can use any oil you prefer. So it could be melted coconut oil, avocado oil, anything you'd like. 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. Also, you can reduce this amount. You could use another form of sugar as long as it's in granulated form. So like coconut sugar or date sugar works, or if you want to do some sort of sugar-free alternative, that works as well. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and I never measure vanilla. I just use the cap because I'm lazy like that. And then 3 large eggs. Almond flour doesn't have any binding agent in it, so this is a lot of eggs, but the eggs are what binds this bread together. Then just whisk together those wet ingredients. All right, so I'm doing something a little different today with this recipe. So when the recipe was initially published, I used 3 1/3 cups of almond flour. But I've been experimenting with adding another starch to almond flour to kind of absorb all that oiliness and moisture and build out the structure more. And I've had a lot of success with using cornstarch, or you could use tapioca starch or an equal amount of coconut flour as well. So I'm going to add 1/4 cup of cornstarch to this recipe. And since I'm adding the cornstarch, I'm gonna cut back on the almond flour a little bit and do 3 1/4 cup, which is 323 grams of almond flour. You want blanched, fine almond flour for this. And then the rest is just 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then for the banana bread vibes, I'm adding 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, but here's when you do you. You can do more cinnamon, you can add nutmeg or cloves or any other warm, comforting spices that you'd like. And then that's it. We're just gonna stir to combine. And I do wanna mention too, if you don't wanna add the other starch, you could just stay with the 3 1/3 cup of almond flour. That works too. I just feel like the crumb is a little bit lighter when you add something else in to absorb that moisture. All right, your bread pan. I use an 8.5 by 4.5 bread pan. Almond flour is really heavy and has a tendency to flatten out. So I feel like a smaller bread pan works better. It's going to almost fill to the top, but almond flour doesn't rise as high as wheat flour baked goods just because it's so heavy. So if you have this smaller size pan, I recommend it. If you have the larger pan, the 9.5 by 5, that works too. It'll just be more spread out and flatter on top. It's ready to pop in the oven, but I'm gonna show you if you wanna be fancy with your bread. When I'm making banana breads, I take a sharp knife and I'll run it all the way down the middle. It has no other reason, just to make it look a little prettier when it comes out of the oven. So you wanna bake this in a 350 oven, and it takes 55 to 60 minutes. It takes a long time. So what I recommend is the last 20 minutes, loosely tent a piece of foil over it. Don't put it over tight because it'll trap in the steam. Just like kind of like fold your foil in half and tent it over the top so the top doesn't get too brown before the middle's cooked through. And then if you really want to make sure your bread is done, use an internal thermometer and it should measure 200 degrees inside. So you have a lot of options. If you want to zhuzh up this bread a little bit, you can add chocolate chips, which always a great idea. You could do chopped nuts, dried fruits like dried cranberries or raisins. Like I mentioned before, you can change up the spices. I also sometimes like to sprinkle coarse sugar on top to just give it like a crunchy, sweet finish. This is an excellent dairy-free, grain-free, gluten-free breakfast or snack. I usually make it and I'll slice it and I'll put it in my freezer so I could just grab and go snacks. I have a ton of almond flour recipes on my website and I'll link to my favorite ones below. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video.